In the tranquil town of Seymour, Missouri, the disappearance and tragic death of Kellyanne Workman sent shockwaves through the community, leaving her family and friends devastated. Kellyanne, a young woman known for her quiet demeanor and hard work ethic, vanished while tending to her duties at the Dogwood Cemetery on a fateful summer evening in 1989. What ensued was a decades-long quest for justice, as investigators pursued leads, faced setbacks, and finally, through perseverance and determination, brought charges against the suspected perpetrators over 30 years later. When Kellyanne Workman was found, everyone knew who the perpetrators were, yet no one came forward or dared to implicate the thugs involved until 35 years later. Kellyanne Workman was born to farmer parents Stanley and Joan Workman in 1965. They were residents of Seymour, Douglas County, Missouri. Stanley worked at Deco Corporate for 19 years, but he truly enjoyed farming and caring for his dairy herd. Kelly had two siblings, Pam Workman and Mark Workman. Her baby brother, Ames Matthew Workman, passed away when he was an infant. She had blonde hair and green eyes and was a well-reserved, quiet girl who lived with her parents. Kelly often did house and yard work for people in the Dogwood area. She mowed the grass at the Dogwood Cemetery for about 3 years. It was not unusual for a young woman to be a cemetery caretaker in this area, and it was not unusual for her to work into the evening. The cemetery did not scare her, but it would become a nightmare for her family. While working late into the evening, Kelly simply disappeared on June 30th, 1989. At first, her parents believed she was running a little late, but as dinner time approached and there was still no sign of Kelly, her parents grew increasingly anxious. It was unlike their daughter to be out so late without any notice. Kelly's cousin, Shayna Beebe, vividly remembers the day Joan Workman rushed to their home in a panic, telling Kelly's father and uncle that she was missing. It was an emotional and frantic moment that set the tone for the days that followed. Friends and family gathered, forming search parties and holding on to hope. With every passing hour, their worry deepened into fear, prompting them to contact the police. A wide search ensued, spreading through Douglas County. The last confirmed sighting of Kelly was at 5:40 p.m. when she was mowing the grass at the Dogwood Cemetery in Douglas County. This is near the Southern Baptist Church where she worked. It was right at Highway 14, and Z, her uncle, could see her hard at work. However, around 6:15, he could not see her anymore, so she either left or was taken between those times. At that time, Pam Workman, Kelly's sister, was living in Kansas City, Missouri, about 200 miles away. The 22-year-old was living her life. She could not even imagine the tragedy that would strike her family. On July 1st, a knock at Pal's apartment door interrupted her morning routine. Standing there were her aunt and uncle, their faces etched with worry. They delivered the news that Kelly was missing, a revelation that would forever alter Pam's life. The drive back to Douglas County, although not extraordinarily long, felt endless to Pam. Each mile was a painful reminder of her sister's absence and the uncertainty that loomed over the family. For days, the Workman family huddled together, praying and wondering where Kelly was. The most confusing thing was the fact that Kelly's keys were in the car's ignition and only 2/3 of the grass had been cut. The lawnmower was fully gassed but turned off. The detectives deduced she was interrupted and not to be robbed, she was possibly kidnapped. When Kelly was finally found, the relief was overshadowed by heartbreak. Unfortunately for her family, 24-year-old Kelly's body was discovered a week after her abduction. Her body was submerged in a creek in the Mark Twain National Forest near Oldfield, more than 10 miles from where she was last seen. The discovery was particularly harrowing for two of Kelly's uncles who were present at the scene due to the rapid decomposition of her body. Authorities were unable to determine the exact cause of her demise. They found no evidence of head injury or bullet wounds after x-raying her. They believed she had likely lost her life. On the night of June 30th or July 1st, AM often felt that her sister's case was not given the priority it deserved. This sense of neglect only added to her sorrow and frustration. However, hope persisted. Pam clung to the belief that one day justice would be served, not only for Kelly, but for all families enduring the agony of a cold case. Pam strongly believed Kellyanne was a victim of knowing too much. She worked at Dogwood store some days, and she possibly heard something. She should not have something about illegal substances or money. The perpetrator felt the need to silence her, which gives motive as well. While Pam believes there was not much the police did, investigators had another problem. They had 3 suspects, but they had no way of charging them. They were interrogated, but they had alibis. On July 10, 1989, law enforcement authorities admitted during a meeting that they had no physical leads in this case. The meeting included representatives from the Christian County and Douglas County Sheriff's Departments, as well as officials from Springfield and Willow Springs of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Even with all their resources combined, they simply lacked evidence. The Workmans publicly urged people to do something and begged witnesses to come forward, if they knew anything at all. They offered a $10,000 reward on July 13, 1989. They had initially offered it when Kelly went missing, but now they asked people to come forward with information regarding her tragic fate. 4 months into the investigation, the Douglas County Sheriff admitted there was no significant progress. The department continued its investigation by eliminating suspects, circumstances, and evidence. They had nothing on the case. The Workmans found hope when they had a small breakthrough. Kelly's mother, Joan Workman, was randomly going through the events of the day with family members on the 30th of December 1989. Another family, one of their friends, gave her an important piece of information that they withheld or forgot about. 4 days after Kelly's abduction, someone called their friends at their residence and said they had seen a man at the Workman's house on the afternoon Kelly disappeared. The sheriff's office released yet another statement. They were confident that Kelly's case would get solved because someone was out there with some crucial piece of information. The main suspects were the town's infamous Banks brothers, Leonard Dwight Banks and Bobby Lee Banks. In August 1990, a polygraph test was administered to Bobby Lee Banks, as requested by the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Not surprisingly, he failed the test, which his attorney claimed was due to weak emotions. There was a lot of publicity, and their attorney at the time said they should refrain from making a public statement. His brother Dwight Banks was also asked by the police to take a polygraph test. The brothers were Seymour residents and had been spotted in the area. Dwight agreed to the polygraph test, where the examiner asked him 3 main questions. Firstly, did he take the life of Kelly and Workman? Then, does he know who took her life? And lastly, was he under the influence of illegal substances? Dwight answered no to all the questions, and the examiner found him to be telling the truth, unlike his brother. Police also found out that a young man was seen in the cemetery the day Kelly disappeared. This man's truck was found burned later during the day. It is highly likely this man was involved, and his accomplice burned the truck and threatened him. 2 years later, in October 1992, an elderly person phoned Joan and gave her the name of a woman. This person believed the woman and her legal substance dealer boyfriend were involved in Kellyanne's demise. The identity of the caller was never found, and this apparent lead was useless. But in the meantime, Dwight's ex-girlfriend came forward to say he had asked her to be an alibi for her the night Kellyanne lost her life. 6 years after the discovery of Kellyanne Workman's decomposed body, authorities remained without significant leads. Christian County Sheriff Steve Whitney reported that a grand jury investigation had yielded no results. Kelly's father, Stanley Workman, believed multiple individuals were involved in her abduction and slaying, but lacked proof. By mid-July 1995, a new lead emerged, prompting renewed investigative efforts. Sheriff Whitney indicated he had suspects, but refrained from disclosing details. Investigations continued with another promising lead, and by July 1996, Bobby and Dwight Banks were identified as suspects in Kelly's slaying. Dwight Banks had confessed that he and his brother Bobby saw Kelly a few hours before she was taken, when she was working at the dogwood store, but he said he and his brother had nothing to do with their tragedy or kidnapping. In fact, when she had disappeared, he and Bob were at his house eating fried chicken. Investigators had reason to believe that Dwight had taken illegal substances, such as relaxants or Valium, in order to pass the polygraph test that his brother failed while all this development happened in Kelly's case. On 16 July 1996, a bomb was found at the Workman House. Officers from the 2 counties policemen and the bomb squad from Jefferson City defused the bomb. The bomb was found on the hood of Joan's car. Rita Sanders, a 17-year veteran of law enforcement, believed she knew the men responsible for Kellyanne Workman's end. 2 of them were from Seymour, and a third from rural Fordland, who helped dispose of the body. Rita doubted they would be brought to justice due to manhandled evidence and the passage of time. Interestingly, Rita was fired from the force that year. Rita told the Workman that a witness saw Kelly being forcibly taken into a pickup. While she fought bravely for her life, things picked up momentum when a man from Ava came forward confessing to the crime. In December 1998, he also implicated 2 other men, but still no arrests were made. On June 9, 1999, DNA testing warrants were served to Seymour's Dwight Banks and Fordland, Wyoming belt in connection with Kellyanne Workman's end, but lab results were never released and neither man was arrested or charged. Belt revealed in an interview that he was not afraid of the testing and that he did not know the Banks brothers. He said someone must have spotted him at the dogwood store because he saw Kelly there that day, and so the case was buried for decades. There were no new leads. Some of the involved officers retired while photographic evidence was lost. On one occasion, Kelly's sister Pam ran into Dwight Banks while grocery shopping. It was an unpleasant experience and he wanted to start an altercation with her. Investigators Leslie Albert and Christopher Holland were assigned to Kellyanne Workman's case in 2021. They were assigned to elder abuse and dependent adult abuse caseloads in southwest Missouri. It was not until their second year of investigating that Albrecht and Holland met with the eyewitnesses. They ended up providing crucial information that solidified the case against the Bank brothers and Belt. Within a few months of this revelation, the indictment came, but Stanley Workman passed away on September 11, 2022, without living to see the perpetrators behind bars. On February 20, 2024, Douglas County Grand Jury indicted 65-year-old Bobby Banks of Seymour and 64-year-old Leonard Dwight Banks of Gainesville, also 64-year-old Belt of Ava, for the 1989 slaying, assault, and kidnapping of Kellyanne Workman. The men were held at the Douglas County Jail on a $250,000 cash bond each. Lawyers tried to get something of a leniency from the court, with Dwight Banks struggling with pancreatic cancer and diabetes. All three charges are in the first degree, meaning each carries the possibility of life in prison. Though Kellyanne's father, Stanley Workman, passed away without witnessing the resolution, his family finds solace in the fact that the wheels of justice are finally turning. As the trial begins, the hope remains that Kellyanne's memory will be honored with a just outcome, bringing a measure of peace to those who have long awaited justice.